Once I did too much. I made a copy of the Schönbrunn Castle in Vienna.
Yes?
And we needed 500 builders to build it.
Once I did too much. I made a copy of the Schönbrunn Castle in Vienna. Yes. And we needed 500 builders to build it. When the King of the Waltz suddenly stumbled on stage at age 75. The music world held its breath. How does a performer who once filled stadiums with joy confront a crisis that threatens not just his career but his very balance? Behind André Rieu's dazzling success, Lee's story of deep personal battles, relentless illness, and an unyielding spirit that refused to surrender. From a childhood marked by harsh discipline to a viral illness that nearly ended his musical journey, his life reads like a dramatic symphony itself. The crisis on stage. At the age of 75, André Rieu, the famed King of the Waltz, faced a moment that shook the music world to its core. During a high-profile series of concerts in Mexico City in early 2024, the maestro experienced a sudden and alarming physical collapse mid-performance. What was supposed to be a triumphant return to the stage turned into a nightmare as fever, confusion, and breathlessness overwhelmed him. Four concerts had to be ended prematurely, angering over 40,000 ticket holders and forcing the entire orchestra to cancel the remainder of the tour. This unexpected breakdown sent ripples of concern through his dedicated fan base and the classical music community alike. Despite decades of filling stadiums worldwide, Rieu suddenly found himself vulnerable and unsteady, struggling to maintain the dignity that had always defined his presence. Backstage whispered rumors circulated about the severity of his condition. Reports spoke of jet lag, altitude sickness, and a stubborn flu colliding in a perfect storm. The physical toll was clear, but what made this moment even more jarring was the suddenness and public nature of the collapse. For a man who built his career in flawless performances and tireless touring, this marked a painful fracture in his carefully crafted image. This crisis was not an isolated incident, but the culmination of years of mounting health challenges that had quietly shadowed his career. Though few fully understood it, André had been battling a persistent vulnerability since 2010 when a viral infection targeted his inner ear, undermining his equilibrium and threatening his very ability to perform. That early scare forced him to cancel tours and retreat from the relentless pace that had defined his life. While the world believed he made a full recovery, the truth was far more complex. The damage left him physically altered and fragile. For years following his initial illness, André pushed himself to resume the frenetic lifestyle of a touring virtuoso, an ambition that hid the truth of an unsettled balance and intermittent dizziness. The pressure maintained his reputation as the unstoppable maestro clashed with the physical realities of his body's limitations. It wasn't until the public collapse in Mexico City that the gravity of the situation became impossible to ignore. Suddenly, the man who once seemed invincible was forced to confront a new reality where his health dictated his music. The aftermath behind the scenes was very chaotic and painful. The orchestra mid-tour disbanded, and as a result, concerts were cancelled. Flights, snorts reversed, and refunds were issued. All this came as a Disruption to André's fan base, but also to the orchestra and team who had been his supporters for decades. This disconnection revealed weaknesses that were previously unseen due to the stage's glowing spotlight. At the same time, it prepared a crucial change in the management of André's career and health going forward. There was a question: how could a performer at the peak of his career come to such a breaking point? The answer was buried deep in the years of personal trials, health issues, and the pressure of touring without a break. It suggested that the past injuries had not fully healed and that the health problems had been worsened by a strict performance schedule. The collapse in Mexico City in many ways was an inevitable climax to a long-concealed war. This moment was a turning point, a forced slowing down that no artist desires, but one that becomes unavoidable with passing time. In the right circumstances, it uncovered the human frailty that was behind the bigger-than-life life picture, teaching the world that no amount of fame could protect a person from getting sick or tired. However, this crisis also contained the emergence of a new chapter that was going to need recreation, endurance, and reliance on the closest ones. The rest of André Rieu's story cannot be told without understanding the foundations laid in his youth, where these of both his passion and resilience first took root, shaping the man who would later become a global icon. Childhood and early influences. André Rieu's early life was marked by strict discipline and emotional distance, creating a childhood that was far from nurturing. Born on October 1, 1949, he was the third of 6 children in a household where authoritarian rules reigned, largely set by his father, a renowned and feared conductor. At home, love was described by André and out of warmth, but as a cold, abstract concept rarely demonstrated through affection or encouragement. His mother's obsession with academic achievement and skill left little room for imagination or creative freedom, turning his artistic impulses into perceived weaknesses. It was within this austere environment that young André began his journey into music. At 5 years old, a turning point came when an 18-year-old violin mentor entered his life, offering a gentle alternative to the rigidness he knew. Unlike his parents, she coaxed him to feel through music rather than simply perform it, planting the seeds of emotional connection with his instrument. In her music guidance, he found freedom, a tremor that was neither love nor romance, but the spark of life itself. This experience ignited a passion that propelled him forward, even as his home life offered no comfort. Ash grew into his teenage years. André's burgeoning love for waltzes clashed sharply with his father's stern expectations. His father's harsh rejection of this style of music was more than a disagreement over taste. It felt like a direct attempt to extinguish his creative spirit. The repeated admonishment that he wasn't raised to play waltzes echoed through his youth, leaving deep emotional scars. This conflict between personal passion and parental authority would later fuel his determination to carve out his own artistic path. Amidst this tension, a pivotal relationship changed the course of his life. In 1968, André's decision to be with Marjorie rather than conform to his parents' rigid expectations resulted in fierce rejection from his mother, who demanded Marjorie leave immediately. Feeling the weight of this familiar repudiation, André chose to leave his childhood home that very night, severing ties with a household that had offered no sanctuary. From then on, his family home became an untouched shell, a symbol of absence rather than belonging. Despite filling arenas with adoring fans, the silence from his family remained a haunting void. His parents never attended his performances, a fact that underscored the emotional distance that had defined his early years. This absence left wounds that no amount of applause could heal, prompting André to spend years in therapy grappling with the hollowness of his upbringing. It was his music, above all, that ultimately allowed him to feel seen and understood. The violin turned into more than a musical instrument. It was a cord linking him to the world outside his shattered family life. He was allowed to breathe in freedom and expression through playing. This strong relationship with music was his source of strength during tough moments and helped him to see what music could become: an experience shared by all humans for the purpose of joy and connection. After formal orchestral training and years coping with the often sterile environment of traditional classical music, André's rebellious character shone through the 12 and more musicians playing under the name of the Mastery Salon Orchestra, which he established in 1978, were the Critic Sam large stage's three-way love triangle breakup. 12 young and vibrant musicians that André had assembled planned to play only for loving their music. Small towns and humble community halls were the sites of these first performances, which already had the human element mixed up with sound. It was an undisruptive revolution that had hope and authenticity at its core, not fame or wealth. This blend of personal strength, creative rebellion, and partnership set the stage for something truly new, one that would redefine classical music and inspire audiences worldwide to reclaim joy through sound, breaking tradition. In 1987, André Rieu took a bold step by formally founding the Johann Strauss Orchestra, marking the beginning of a radical mission to restore the heartbeat to classical music. Unlike conventional orchestras cloaked in solemn black tail coats, Rieu sensible wore vibrant colors and embraced a joyful atmosphere. This departure from tradition was both a statement and an invitation to celebrate music with light, movement, and dance, rather than austere formality. The inaugural New Year's Day premiere in 1988, music exploded with energy, lights, and laughter, defiantly challenging critics who dismissed the approach. Despite ridicule from traditionalists who labeled the act as musical pornography, audiences flocked to the concerts in growing numbers. Rieu wasn't merely selling shows. He was giving people hope. A space where families could dance and grandparents could cry, all united by the healing power of music. His promise to avoid the solemn hush that drives people away resonated deeply, breaking classical music free from its reputation as remote and inaccessible. This new model fostered emotional connection and revived the genre for a fresh generation. By 1995, the orchestra had reached a defining moment on one of Europe's grandest stages, the UEFA Champions League final, Indiana. As the orchestra played Tchaikovsky's Waltz Nu, the entire stadium softened. Football fans paused and applauded with the music easing the tension of competitive sport into an unforgettable moment of grace. The timing of Ajax's goal alongside the soaring music created a legend that elevated both the orchestra and Rieu to new heights of popularity and acclaim. The success was unprecedented. The Johann Strauss Orchestra spent 19 weeks at #1 in the Netherlands, selling millions of records worldwide. The momentum spread to Australia where over 3,800 fans filled stadium seats for a live performance that felt like a fairy tale. Remarkably, 8 of the top 10 DVDs in the country belonged to Rieu, placing him alongside global pop icons and solidifying his status as a musical phenomenon. This era of triumph did not come without detractors. Among the harshest critics were purists who rejected Rieu's festive approach as a mockery of classical art. Yet the palpable joy and sincerity delivered to audiences worldwide won hearts. His concerts became places where emotion was not restrained but celebrated, bringing music to people in a way that transcended traditional boundaries. The divide between critics and fans underscored a larger cultural shift in how classical music was experienced. Rieu's ability to bridge worlds. Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates just like this.